One of the most effective things you can do to help people is to listen. This is a problem that men often have when they're dealing with women.
This brings me to a point about trying to help people in your life, because we all have people in our lives that are struggling in some way, and our knee-jerk response is to get in there and
solve the problem. This is a problem that men often have when they're dealing with women. They leap to the problem solution phase. And they also do that in some ways to avoid, and this is what annoys women, because what the women want, and they don't even know this, but this is what the women want. Women are more sensitive to threat than men. Okay, so they're looking for predators. Now, predation detection it's an intuition. Anxiety is an intuition. Something's wrong. Okay, what? Well, then you guess, right? So imagine the threat system has sort of got something in its sights, but it's a sense that something's not right. But it's not fully fleshed out, the picture, because serpents are camouflaged, right? So the threat is hidden. Well, what the woman wants is to lay out all the things that might be wrong. Okay, well, the guy doesn't want that because, first of all, maybe your wife is upset about something in relationship to your children and she doesn't know what it is. So now she has to go through everything she thinks that might be wrong. Well, even for you to listen, that's going to be rough because some of those things are going to be about you. And so you just have to shut up and you have to let her put her cards on the table. Understanding. Now, she has to do it in good faith. Right? She can't be using that opportunity to skewer you. And so these things are tricky to manage, but you want to listen to her, lay all the cards on the table. Now, the advantage to that is now you know where all the hidden snakes are. Now, if you do that, what you'll find out, and so will she, is that most of the things that she's worried about, she's not actually worried about. She won't know that until she lays them out on the table and can see them. And then both of you can triangulate to the actual problem. And then you can negotiate a solution and offer help. But if you jump right to help, the reason you can't do that is because you probably have the problem wrong. So then back to your question about helping. One of the most effective things you can do to help people is to listen. And there are technologies of listening. And so the first one is, don't assume that either you or the person who's talking knows what the problem is. It's so hard. Once you have the problem specified, you've solved like 95% of the problem. That diagnostic move is really hard. Are we sure we're addressing the most crucial issue? You have to have your sights focused right on the center point of the cross, right? Like in a gun sight. It's like, are we aiming at the right target? And then you can start negotiating problem solution. And but you can develop the patience to do that once you understand that initial act of listening is in itself the most helpful thing you can do. Just listen. And then how do you listen? Okay, so if I'm listening to you, there'll be times when what you're saying doesn't make sense. And so then I'll just say, well, you're saying this now, but you said this 5 minutes ago. And if you listen a lot, you can learn to track conversations across a very long span of time. And that's quite fun. You said this, but then you said this, and they seem contradictory to me. You're not accusing the person. You're saying, I see an inconsistency in the way you're formulating the problem. And they'll sort of startle a little bit and then try to rectify that. They'll check you out to see if you're insulting them or trying to play a game of moral superiority first. But if it's just an honest question, then you're actually helping them lay out a description of the situation that's not internally contradictory. Okay, and the great podcasters do this. You see this with Rogan. All Rogan does is ask stupid questions. And the way he does that is by consulting with his own ignorance in humility. Rogan is listening. He's thinking, I'm a stupid lunkhead and I don't understand this. What do you mean? And that's brave because he's exposing his own ignorance, but it's honest because he doesn't understand, but it also unites him with his audience because, especially with someone like Rogan, the probability at this time that if Rogan doesn't understand the gist of the conversation, that 95% of his audience doesn't understand it's like 100%. The importance of listening can't possibly be overstated. Listen, ask questions until you understand. And by doing that, you also help the other person clarify the situation.
It is so hard to do. And I think we have to just pause at that step, because it is, as you said like that's 95% of the challenge. It is so hard to do in relationships, in work. I've sat literally at this table with a colleague of mine about a year ago, and she was telling me, she works in one of my companies, she was telling me that she's unhappy in her role. And I remember sitting here and she gave me a bunch of reasons why. And I kept asking and asking questions. And after just 30 minutes of asking the questions, she had decided that in fact, everything she had just said was not the issue. And then it related back to a much more fundamental issue of just meaning in her work.
Okay. Well, that's very important. That's very important. Jung called that a circumambulation. Okay, so now imagine the threat system is going off, right? It's saying something's wrong. But it's a primordial predator detection instinct. That's what's being triggered. It isn't capable of high resolution conceptual formulation, not to begin with. Something's wrong. Okay, what? Maybe this. Okay, now what happens is the maybes circle and spiral, right? And as you lay them out, you spiral inward to the gist of the matter. But you have to see, because you can imagine while this woman is explaining her problems to you, she's talking about things about the company and her relationship with the company that might be unsettling to you. So you're sitting there thinking, while she's laying out her problems, maybe you're getting defensive. Well, that's not true. The company's better than that. That's an unfair accusation. So you're feeling on the spot. Plus you want to jump in with your solution because you want to show that you're bigger than the problem that she's showing. Or maybe you're secretly attracted to her and you want to be a white knight. I mean, there can be 50 things. You're sitting there thinking about what you're going to say next because you want to play dominance, or maybe you think that's what you should do because you're a boss. And it's like, there's a lot of things that'll interfere with listening. But so you learn, you say, just shut up, ask stupid questions until the person that you're listening to has specified the problem. Now, if you're very fortunate, both of you will converge on that and it'll just become clear. Think, you pointed this out. This is what that's really all about. Now, the person may be discovering too that they were resistant to that conclusion. Because the fundamental threat is more key to their self-esteem to their conception of themselves, than allowed them to be comfortable before they get to the actual point, which is where they're going to be most vulnerable. They're going to throw out a bunch of screen concerns just to see if you can be trusted with something that will reveal their vulnerability. And they're even doing that to themselves. It's like, dare I tell the truth about this situation? Because I've betrayed myself before, so maybe not.
You're so right. They test you on the way to the truth to see how you'll respond.
Yes, and they're testing themselves too.
Yeah.
And you can facilitate that. See, if you facilitate that by calm listening, then you're modeling the fact that whatever the hell they have as a problem isn't so terrifying that you have to avoid it and run away.
Yeah.
Right.